Hello and welcome to a market-focused panel. We are going to discuss about the opportunities in Vietnam today. But before we start the panel, I want to inform you that if you have any questions to our panelists here, please do submit your questions in the Q&A box that you are seeing on the right side of the screen. So today's session, we are going to discuss the potential for investment in Vietnam in the post-COVID-19 world. We have Conrad Tsang, Chairman and Co-founder of Strategic Here Holdings Limited, a Hong Kong-based private equity firm that has increased the investments activity in Southeast Asia. In Vietnam, the firm has invested in education startup TIKI Holdings. And then we have Quang, who oversees the Vietnam market as well as other Southeast Asian markets for Crescent Group Capital Management, or we can call it sort of Crescent Point. In Vietnam, Crescent Point invested in the integrated children's lifestyle platform NKID back in 2019. And then we have Trieu, Group President and CFO at TIKI Corporation. TIKI is Vietnam's largest homegrown e-commerce platform, and we also call TIKI the Amazon of Vietnam. So to start off the panel discussion today, my first question is to Conrad. So you are based like out of Vietnam, and you can watch the market from afar. So I guess that you can provide a foreign investor perspective in the market. What about the country? What about this market that tells you, wow, this is the moment for me to invest in Vietnam?
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you, DealStreetAsia, for inviting me to join the panel discussion. And thank you, Ngoc, for the question and the ability to discuss on this interesting panel with Richard and Quang as well. So, Conrad Tsang, I'm founder and chairman of TIKI Holdings Limited. We are a growth and venture investment firm across Asia, and we're active in Southeast Asia as well as in Greater China. I'm based in Hong Kong, but before COVID, I visited Vietnam every other week. And one thing I discussed with our friends on the ground in Vietnam is that from Hong Kong and Vietnam, the flight is only 1.5 hours. So it's actually shorter than the flight from Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi. So arguably, I'm even closer to the northern part of Vietnam than some of our friends down south of the Vietnam. So, and we also have on-the-ground colleagues in both Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. I think the fundamentals of the country, the high internet penetration, young demographics, is something that we are all familiar with. The potential of the tech sector, the e-commerce, ad tech, health tech, fintech, etc. I think these are all very salient points that attract foreign investors, ourselves included, to spend more time and resources in Vietnam. But I think today, in line with the topic that we discussed, in fact, I will actually share a bit more what we are seeing in the last year and a half during the COVID and what's happening, and what are we seeing latest as the country is slowly coming out of the COVID situation. The first lockdown was relatively short in around Q2 last year, so the economic impact of the country was not too bad. But the latest wave of COVID-related lockdowns starting off around May this year, and still until now, which is still in place in Ho Chi Minh City. Hanoi has been unlocked. But I think this current wave has really hit the economy hard. We see a lot of like offline presence closed, restaurants, bars, education centers, schools, hospitals, clinics, and those businesses like badly affected. We also see the e-commerce business being affected in certain parts of the country because of the disruption in supply chain. Orders are very strong. I mean, a lot of people are placing orders to buy, first of all, food and groceries to keep their livelihood. And for some people trying to buy some other items, in some places, we even heard that local governments do not allow delivery of non-food and groceries items to prioritize the delivering food and groceries to people who need it. And the riders, a lot of them cannot go to work because they're either not vaccinated or they need to do the testing. Some cases they have to pay for their own testing. So that makes, even though e-commerce itself, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of products were not delivered on time to the people needed. And in the case of like perishable products, even though they were finally delivered, they became rotten and not edible. So those are the kind of things that we're seeing at the moment. And also interesting enough is because some people, which is very unfortunate, some people lost their jobs. Some people have the salary cut. I have an apartment. The tenant's asking for delay in paying rent, and I agree. Of course, I sympathize. And also, I've heard people saying that even in case of BNPL, buy now, pay later, some of the volumes drop as well in the case of like PC purchases or laptops or mobile phones, just because they were not being able to deliver it by the online platforms. So hopefully that now with Hanoi starting to open up, and hopefully Ho Chi Minh can open up pretty soon, and we can see a recovery, I would say, hopefully, from Q4 onwards as far as business activity. But as far as deal making is concerned, I think it's still a bit of a challenge for us. If the business requires, for example, some of the business that we look at, they have offline presence, they have a factory, they have sites. We are not able, even our local colleagues are not able to travel outside their respective district to visit these companies. So I think that would delay the deal closing for some of the projects that we have on hand, which requires some physical due diligence. The online business are already better. I think people can look at the apps, the websites, and then look at the reviews. So I think that part of diligence is easy for us. But even though we see very strong deal flow right now, because we keep on communicating with companies and entrepreneurs and these periods of restrictions and lockdowns, we keep on communicating. And with the situations right now, investors also need to be offering some terms and conditions or valuations that are reflective of current market situation. But on the other side of the table, the companies or entrepreneurs may think that they can actually hold on to the intrinsic value and still have a pretty high pricing expectation because of the potential of the country, etc. So I think it takes a bit of negotiation and massaging to cap both the investor and also the company's pricing expectation match as we speak. So I think these are things that we're seeing right now, and hope it's helpful to all of the panel here and the audience here.
Yes. Well, actually here, Richard can provide us with a lot of insights in terms of the online operations. So we can't deny that the pandemic has made technology emerge as the hot investment sector. So for Vietnam, like we have a young consumer base, and we can compare the purchases pre and post COVID. It has increasing massively, and business models like TIKI has actually benefited from the pandemic. And at TIKI, you have plans for market expansion as well as fundraising and IPO. And with the boost from COVID-19, how do you push forward these plans?
Thanks, Ngoc, and good morning and good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for having me. And of course, thanks to the panelists for allowing me to join as well. So just first to start, we have been extremely bullish on Vietnam for a long time. We dedicated to Vietnam, so we believe in the country. We extremely bullish on tech, and it's not a new trend. It has been for a long time across the world. And it will allow Vietnam to learn from other countries and leapfrog in certain area, especially how our current foundations or infrastructure versus some of more developed countries. So COVID for sure helped accelerate some of the trends, but the trends has been and will continue to adapt technology. And for us, because we are an integrated commerce platform. We integrate from digital all the way down to offline. Just think about the offline market, or the retail market, is still 95% of the economy. The online currently is less than 5%. So there's still a lot of room to move online, but majority of the opportunity is still in the offline market. Where we are investing is to be able to create a seamless integration between online, offline, and across different players. So of course we start out with e-commerce, but one of our biggest investments and continued investment is the integrated logistic and supply platform from the first mile to the last mile, which we will continue to invest. And certain category definitely is impacted or benefited by the COVID or the last couple of months. I think Conrad kind of touched on the point of grocery. For last year, grocery penetrations in Vietnam is less than 0.4%, one of the lowest penetrated category online adoptions. However, I mean, we've seen the last 6 months, of course, the lockdown changed everything because even grocery could not be delivered outside a certain district. But the adoptions, people willing to try, people starting to accept or appreciate, or rather appreciate the convenience, the quality of the online channel to be able to deliver fresh products to them are as high as ever we have ever seen. So in terms of the investments, I mean, again, our thesis in Vietnam is one of the largest economy, the fastest economy. Populated, there's 100 million of us in Vietnam, very young, highly educated, digital savvy. So the economy will continue to grow across the board, from retails to business to logistics to fintech to digital service. Some trends have changed in the last few months that allow us to accelerate our investments. We definitely looking toward investing more into our logistic capability to deliver certain new category like grocery and fresh. So that will be accelerated. Previously, it's more a longer term investment thesis. Now it's just here and now, right? And offline to online is something that we have been building on with our partners, and we will continue to push to make sure that we will create that seamless online, offline experience for our customers. You want to buy online? It's great. You want to buy offline? We want to be able to provide the same sort of selection, same sort of convenience, sample in store, buy online, deliver at home, service in home, pick up in home. And of course, installation in home as well. So there's a lot of things that we have planned to do that will accelerate because of what happened in the last few months, but it hasn't really changed our thesis. We are bullish before COVID, we are bullish during COVID, and we definitely bullish after COVID in terms of where the economy is going, where the opportunities is being created, how technology can actually help everything. Technology for us is an enablement to do everything better, but it doesn't have to. It's disrupt, but it's disrupt in a sense that it create better values for the supply chain, whoever it shall be. So we will continue to help our merchants, which mostly offline store, to operate in the new area of retailing. So there's definitely, just kind of summarize my long answer to your short question is, there's some trend that we see that will accelerate some of the investment, but overall thesis hasn't changed. We're extremely bullish on the macro environment. We're extremely bullish in our ability to leverage technology to make things better for all our partners, from our consumers to our merchants and supply manufacturers and other parties using our service like logistics or fintech partners or insurance partner, which we will be launching in Q4. So we are super bullish and looking to go through this little hump. We consider a little hump. I mean, it's like Conrad said, it's difficult for everybody from online to offline. Unless you're purely digital, then it's a great times because there's nothing you have to worry about everybody moving online. But for us, it's integrated platform. So we feel the pain of our partners, and we want to continue to invest and make it better going forward for them as well.
Yes, before we continue with the conversation, I want to apologize to the audience because we have some technical glitches that Quang was dropped out. Before we might lose you because of the internet issue, I want to ask Quang on a broader questions that you see the PE firm investing into Vietnam, the larger ones like KKR or CPC. They typically invested in the Marsans, the Vingroups, so the big conglomerate. But now they seem to venturing into smaller deals and into even SMEs. Is that a signal of a maturing ecosystem here in Vietnam? And what's your take on the broader interest and also the diversification in terms of the sectors?
Thanks for the questions. Yes, it is. So in the past, we can see that like major funds doing like really big deals like 50 and above million US dollars. But now I think that given the potential of Vietnam, some of the major funds, some of them like in the past they used to do like mega funds, mega deals. Now they are moving into like smaller deals starting like 20-25 million US dollars, and that creates some kind of competitions.
Oh, we are losing Quang again due to the connection. But from a investor point of view, I want to move the question to Conrad. So what do you see about the involvement of the bigger PE firms in this market?
Yes, I would say it is a broader emerging market phenomenon. A lot of like PE funds traditionally they're doing large-scale buyout deals in developed markets, and then into different parts, maybe the more mature parts of Asia, like Singapore or Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Australia for that matter, which were primarily buyout markets, LBO markets. But now with I think increasingly attractive fundamentals, I think Richard also touched on, and also I think read from public sources, people increasingly interested in these emerging Southeast Asian economies, which as recently as 5 years ago, they were called frontier markets. Now people don't call Vietnam a frontier market anymore. People call Vietnam an emerging Southeast Asian market, which I think a lot of fundamentals and
that attract all of the big companies.
Sorry, Quang, because you were dropped out. So can you continue with your answers? Yes, because we lost you earlier.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't know where I'm get lost.
Yeah, you were just starting to say that there were historically mega deals by these PE firms in Vietnam. So I want to ask you about the progress of Vietnam. Do you think that the market has now matured enough?
Right. So in my opinion, right, when there are a lot of funds trying to take a small piece in the Vietnam capital markets, that will help companies to have a better access to the to the funding sources. I just want to take a step back because without COVID, Vietnam is an economy with 300 billion US dollars, and lots of us are talking about in 2035, Vietnam will be $1 trillion US dollars in size. And at a time, Vietnam will be one of the 20 largest economy in the world. And I think that that is one of the very promising story that Vietnam is offering to foreign investors.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, actually, I want to go back to Richard a bit on the e-commerce and online trend here. So before Vietnamese, some enthusiasts that with the rise of Shopee and Lazada, it would be really hard for Vietnamese online marketplaces to compete. But now, given that you share the growth of TIKI, and every step that you're making, every plans for fundraising and IPO, and you say that you're bullish about the market. How about the fundraising plans for TIKI, given both the competition and also the potential and interest from foreign investors?
Thanks for the question, Ngoc. So just start with fundraising size. We have seen tremendous support and interest in Vietnam in general and into the digital economy in specifically. I believe you specifically has reported on our Series E, which we had closed the first tranche and looking to close the rest of the fund shortly. And I'm happy to report that we are oversubscribed and we have to upsize the round just to get the interest of the investor in the Vietnam market overall and in terms of what they believe TIKI can do in the next 5 and 10 years. So that's kind of give it indications that there's definitely a lot more interest in Vietnam overall digital economy and tech sector specifically. For us, our dream is always want to build the best and the largest integrated commerce company in Vietnam. And I will come back to that point. Why does that matter for the competitions? But I will touch point on the IPO plan first. So for us is we have a big dream. We have a big ambitions, and we believe that the economy and the opportunity in Vietnam is just so abundant that there's many more opportunity for us to invest directly or indirectly. And of course, Conrad and Quang, we won't compete with you, but of course we can partner up, right? So in order to get there, we want to make sure that we have access to capital market. And of course, they're a Vietnamese capital market, but everybody know that the best, the most liquid, the most understood, or where the investor are is international market, especially in the U.S. So we see Vietnam are at inflection point in a lot of way, including the ecosystems. There's more and more investment today, but there's have not had a major exit. And in order to create an ecosystem, you do want exit, right? Shall it be M&A, which usually majority of the exit of tech startups, or IPO, which has been very popular in the last few years across the world. And for us, we are at the size that it makes sense for us to explore opportunity to access international capital market to be able to create that liquidity, both to raise more money, but more importantly is have that currency as our shares are now liquid and has a real value to it that we can redeploy and reinvest, or not reinvest, but continue to invest in the ecosystem. And of course, at the end of the day, the investor invest in us is to make money. It's our job to make sure that we make them a lot of money and to create that exit opportunity. We hope all of them will stay with us for the next 5 and 10 years because we truly believe that we can be much, much bigger and create so much more values in Vietnam for everybody, including our investor. But if they've been with us 10 years, it makes perfect sense that they look into, to see some liquidity. So it across the board, we look at IPO as a next milestone for us. It's not an end game. It will help us to create some optionality that as a private company is harder to have. One is your shares is now liquid. That allow us to invest directly or indirectly is much easier. You have capital access, both equity and debt, which is much cheaper in an international market and domestic market. And of course, it will generate both more additional investor interest because now they're exit, but more importantly for us is to continue to attract talents. We need more talents. We always need more talents to execute. The opportunity is definitely there. We built a strong foundation to where we are today. but we will continue to need talents to execute. And as hopefully one of the first Vietnamese company to list overseas will allow us to tell that story. So
Yes.
it does help across the board, but we also understood, especially I spent most of my life in the US, in public company in the US, there's a lot of cons that come with being a public company in the US, regulatory requirements, quarterly analysts, everybody look at everything you do, short-term versus, so you have to be very disciplined thing of long-term and how you manage your employees and partners when your share keep moving up and down all the times. So there's a lot of cons to come with it. But for us, the pros definitely outweighed the con, and we are at the right size for it. And to move into competitions, honestly, we look at Lazada and Shopee as pioneers in e-commerce in Vietnam in a lot of ways. They have they helped build the e-commerce in Vietnam. We are still at the early phase of growth. We are barely 5% penetrated versus South Korea or China is 35%. And they were on the same place not so long ago, but less than 10 years ago. China is also 4 or 5%. So there's still a long way for us to grow. But in order to get this 5%, if we were the only player in the market, we would not be where we are today. We didn't have the capability. We are the least funded company. We wouldn't be able to build that adoption across the board the way Shopee and Lazada could have by spend a lot of money in the last 5 years. But that helped us in a lot of ways. It built awareness of online adoptions. It helped adoption. And now we can actually have an audience to present our value proposition to. Right? So all of us are offering very different value propositions and which get different traction from different segments of the consumers. For us, we are #1 trusted platform. We are great service and fastest shippings. So the people who align with us is the people who care about the quality of the product they buy, who care about the convenience of getting it very fast, and who care about if something's wrong, it's great service is taken care of by TIKI. So when people buy on TIKI, they buy on TIKI. Like they buy from us. It doesn't matter if it's our retail arms or from our partners, merchants, right?
Yes, so, I'm sorry to stop you there, but I'm curious to know how much have you decided to upsize for this round, and what would be the post-money valuation? Would TIKI become a unicorn?
So, we are still in the process. So unfortunately, I can't update that number yet, but, you and I can have a separate conversations at a different point in time, which I can update you that information.
Yes.
But
right.
yeah, so, in terms of competitions, I think the market is big for a lot of different players. All of us are catering to different things. And as long as we will continue to improve what we do and extend what we are good at, which is sourcing the greatest products and continue to add a lot more products than we currently have. Continue to have that faster delivery, 2-3 hours, same day, next day across the country, and continue to provide great service, hassle-free returns, want to make sure that we take care of our customers. We will continue to capture, a large piece of the market, and, we have big ambitions. But right now, even with 10-20% of a very large market will create a very valuable company for us. So we care deeply and we appreciate the competitions. They're very good at what they do, especially Shopee in the last 5 years. And we learn a lot from them at the same times. But we also have built a strong foundations and value prop in what we do. Again, #1 trusted platform, great products, great services, and we will continue to invest in it. And where we differ from our peers a little bit, and we consider that our peers a little less than competition, even though we compete against each other. We are going to build this e-commerce market together. But our longer vision is an integrated commerce. So we don't just purely compete on price or selection online, but we want to be able to integrate the entire ecosystem into play. That's always been our founder visions, and we execution to it is we start out with e-commerce, but there's a B2B on top that we can help. And there's logistic business that we've been investing in, and there's digital business and financial services that we invested in. And of course, we are an open platform today. allow developer to go on and launch service on us. So everything we do is connect the entire ecosystem. So hopefully, we will kind of even show more traction in the next 6 to 12 months that we can talk to you guys about.
Yes, actually, there's a really interesting question from the audience coming in. I want to ask Conrad this one. So before TIKI can become the unicorn here, so we have VNG and VNPay recently. So how will the unicorn status impact the ecosystem? And with the presence of the unicorn, would it draw in more investors into the market?
The short answer is definitely yes. It's actually a positive spiral that we have seen in the places like China, in the places like India. As in the private market, more companies achieve unicorn status. That attracts the attention of institutional investors, both local and international. So previously, they didn't know a place like Vietnam can nurture a unicorn. So now there are a couple of unicorns, and all the best with TIKI become the next unicorn very soon as well. So as there are more and more track record of unicorn cases, the next thing they're thinking about is, so we invest in this unicorn, even though it's a pre-IPO round or a private round, the company can really go public. We as investors have been helping actually our portfolio companies go public in US or in Hong Kong market over the past 20 years. And I see huge potential for Southeast Asian companies, for Vietnam companies to do the same path as some of the peers have done elsewhere in the world. So some of the bigger companies, tech companies, definitely US would be a logical choice to access international capital. But I also want to make a point is that Hong Kong Stock Exchange may be another venue that sizable unicorns would like to consider. First of all is the proximity. And as I said, Hong Kong is only an hour and a half away from Hanoi, 2.5 hours away from Ho Chi Minh. 1 hour time zone difference, so you don't have to stay late at night to take earnings call from a U.S. investor. Number one, and number two, over the past few years, Hong Kong has actually introduced a lot of new listing regulations to enable tech companies to invest. I.e., they don't have a profit requirement if the market cap is $500 million above. So that's actually it's only half the unicorn. The threshold, then you can list in Hong Kong without profit. Number one. Number two is that for a biotech company, they allow non-revenue generating biotech companies to list in Hong Kong. And number three is the variable voting rights. So if the founders want to actually have different classes of shares with different voting rights, Hong Kong enables that as well. And Hong Kong for the past 10 years has consistently been one of the top 3 fundraising in terms of the amount raised destinations, along with NYSE and NASDAQ. The 3 of them have been neck to neck, raising like $50 billion a year from each exchange consistently. So I think for the more sizable companies, definitely international listings are very interesting. And we ourselves at DealStreetAsia, we can leverage our wealth of experience and connections with bankers and the intermediaries to help portfolio companies achieve IPO. That's one. But the other thing, we're also seeing the opportunity for unicorns or for some of the semi-unicorns who may or may not want to go abroad. So what are the opportunities here in Vietnam? What we can see is also encouraging is the increasing liquidity in the domestic stock markets. What we found was that before the pandemic, the daily turnover for like Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange was like maybe $200 million a day or something. But now that has gone up to over $1 billion. And partly was a lot of people got locked down, got nothing to do, so they trade stocks at home. So I think that's one. But I think another thing is that it's just that a lot of Vietnamese companies locally, they're achieving a scale that they would start thinking about actually listing, whether it be locally or internationally. And for us, we're open because we're an investor. And we invest in larger scale companies. We also invest in earlier stage companies. And we don't necessarily underwrite our investment case is that the company should go for a NASDAQ or Hong Kong or NYSE listing. No. We would look at each specific situation. If we think that a company is actually better suited for a local listing, we'll be just as keen to help the companies, to promote, sponsor them, to work with the local intermediaries to go for a exchange, whether it be Ho Chi Minh or in Hanoi. So we're flexible in that regard.
In terms of, putting the title of unicorn in the US listing aside, I want to touch on the intrinsic value of the companies. I mean, most of the Vietnamese company has been really focused on the Vietnamese market. Meanwhile, we see other tech companies across the region have expanded regionally. And can we still rely on a single market operations? And also broader for Vietnam, can we still rely on the conventional strength of the economy, like cheap labor costs or even the talent pool? What would be the new value proposition for the companies and was the Vietnamese economy as a whole? So Conrad, do you want to take it?
Okay, sure. For one good thing, I think what we're seeing is that the talent, there's a lot of talent actually in Vietnam from the overseas returnees, I mean, Richard included, as well as some of the local talent that we see. Not just of low-cost labor, no. I think that's part of it. That's being improved as we speak, as the workers improve their technical skills in the manufacturing sector. But what we're seeing is also, for example, we invest in Indonesian companies. And we have come across more than one Indonesian company, one of which is our portfolio company. In their early years of development, they couldn't find enough IT talent in Indonesia locally. So they had to set up an R&D center in Hanoi, where they think there are a lot of tech engineers who can do the coding, the engineering work to support the operations in Indonesia. So that company does not have a revenue generating operations in Vietnam at all. They just have an R&D team in Hanoi because they think that on a relative basis, they can find tech talent in Hanoi. So that tells, I think, the local talent is recognized by peers in the region. I think that's one. The other one is that Vietnam itself is such a big market with 100 million people, 300-400 billion US dollars a market. A lot of people have, a lot of entrepreneurs that we come across, including our own portfolio companies, have the ambition to go regional. I think having ambition is good, but our advice to them would be, you saturate your own market first. I mean, if you can saturate your own market, become a sizable market share or number one player there, you're already working with a $300 billion economy. And with that, you can leverage your expertise, you leverage your experience to go to other neighboring places like Cambodia, Laos, or even in Myanmar. The other frontier parts of Southeast Asia. It's probably easier for them to go that way as opposed to go to the more mature markets elsewhere in Southeast Asia, like Indonesia or Vietnam or Thailand. So I would say for Vietnamese, if they want to go, let's say, within the region, I would encourage them to start with the more frontier parts of Southeast Asia first. But for some of the companies which are really ambitious, like VinFast, right? So they have a car manufacturing plant in the US, planning something in Europe, and try to sell the electric vehicles globally. That's a different matter. And I do think that is also, there's an opportunity there as well. Just like some of the peers in China did 20 years ago. At that time, made in China was like the way to go across the world. But I think now with all the dynamics and what we're seeing, made in Vietnam is becoming the way to go as well. So in the not too distant future, I think we'll see more examples like VinFast, similar companies starting from Vietnam but actually going global.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's one more question from the audience. I want to give this to Conrad too. It is, how do LPs view the progress Vietnam has made in terms of the macroeconomic stability and ease of doing business? And are LPs still waiting to see look to reach its next level of maturity?
LPs depend on the type of LPs, right? So for the commercial driven LPs, they're very simple. They look at distribution. I put in some money into a fund who invests in Vietnam. Can they give me the money with the return? I think for the LPs who think about just commercial, it's very simple. So what they would think about is they don't need to see the maturity. One challenge I would say for Vietnam is that there's capital control. So money going in, money going out are carefully monitored, and there's some processes to approval to be made. But if the fundamentals are attractive enough, I think people are willing to bear that risk. So for commercial-driven or return-driven LPs, it's very simple. It's returns and distribution. As long as the managers, whether it be local managers or regional managers like us, if we can invest a company in Vietnam and after a few years we can take the money out with the return to them, they're okay with it. That's on the commercial side. And the other side of the The LPs are the development financial institutions, DFIs. I think their perspective is a little different because they look at returns as well. On top of that, they really care about how the GPs, they invest in companies to create impact. How many people they employ in Vietnam, what's the ratio of male, female employees, what's the positive impact of the environment, how to reduce carbon emission, how many people they can actually, for example, care during COVID, things like that. So the ESG and impact components for the DFIs, I think, will be very, very important consideration for them when investing into Vietnam.
Yes, we are running out of time, so I have a final question. So I want to both of you to have a 30-second pitch to make it short. So if we zoom out from the private investment space and look at the broader economy, then there might be some worsening signs, like for the first time, the Vietnamese GDP growth become negative in the last quarter. And then several global manufacturers are reportedly planning exits. So given all of that signs, do you think that, how can Vietnam bounce back from that and achieve the pre-COVID growth?
So I guess I give Conrad some time to rest. So I will do my quick 30-second first. So from our perspective, Vietnam economy has all the foundations. And we look at this as a short bump in the road. It won't affect longer terms. The population is still there. The middle class is still growing, highly educated, digital savvies. The consumption's curve are start steepening in terms of hockey stick in terms of consumption because GDP per capita has already passed the $3,500 last year's. The pent-up demand will come, and it will come fast and furious, and that's how we're going to plan for it. So Q3, maybe even Q4 is going to have lingering impact of COVID. We expect COVID will be here to stay. It's last year we're hoping that it go away after a year, but now we realize it's going to be here to stay. But that's okay. It will be everybody's will adapt, and the elements that make us great today, we're going to make us even better tomorrow. So we are still looking to what Quang said earlier, that $1 trillion economy in the next 5 to 20, 10 to 20 years. So we will invest accordingly based on that trajectory versus worry about a quarter or two.
Yes, Conrad?
Yeah, I agree with Richard. I mean, fundamentals remain intact, no doubt about that. Take long-term view. Short term, look at it as a step back, if you will. Some people, as they're walking, right, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, things like that, but move forward again, right? So direction is no problem. But I would say if the government or the community can learn some of the lessons, how to actually maybe improve the way that they are tackling this COVID, in terms of testing, in terms of government subsidies, in terms of vaccination, and people increase the vigilance, sanitation levels. I think that will actually help the situation because COVID, let's say, will stay with us as a science naturally, but how to live with it, to strike a balance between reopening businesses, but people stay vigilant to get them away. Eventually, the virus would probably just like common flu. It exists with us, and people just basically live with it normally. But how to get through that process, balancing between businesses and personal cleanliness and health, I think is something that maybe everybody in Vietnam should think about.
Yes, and that is a wrap. Thank you, Richard and Conrad, for participating in today's panel. Thank you very much for your insights. It's really interesting to learn from you. And this comes to the networking session, so please have nice networking and do come to our booth on the Who Below platform, as well as talk to our colleagues as well as other attendees here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.